Recently, a new television news channel launched in the UK called GB News. Headed by veteran broadcaster Andrew Neil, it was billed as an alternative to its peers due to its editorial policy of giving voice to those people who feel sidelined. Not even a week old, and still working up the teething problems, GB News has been treated like the bastard unwanted stepchild of the established media organisations. The professional hypocrites of Twitter filled that burning dumpster fire with the moronic battle cry, GB News is not unbiased. It's rich, coming from people who sport pronouns in their bios and have follow back pro-Europe or a red rose after their usernames. The media in Britain makes absolutely no pretense of being unbiased. In print media, there's actually an even split between the left and right-leaning papers. The Guardian, The Independent, The Metro, The Mirror all exhibit a left-wing bias, and The Telegraph, The Times, The Daily Mail and The Sun all exhibit a right-wing bias. However, when it comes to television news, the landscape is very clearly dominated by left-wing opinions and assumptions. Television media in the UK is dogged by allegations of left-wing bias and a persistent public perception of such. A January 2021 poll by YouGov on the public perception of the bias of Channel 4, for example, found that more than 7 times more people viewed the station as having a noticeably left-wing bias than right-wing. My point is that none of the mainstream TV, print or internet publications are judged by the standards of being unbiased. Everyone thinks they are in some way or another. But is GB News' apparent lack of impartiality or editorial position any reason to cancel them? In the past few days, many big-name brands have pulled their advertising from GB News, and there hasn't even been a scandal. However, this didn't stop the various purveyors of vice from virtue signalling their points all over the Twitter sphere. Kopparberg and Grolsch, alcoholic drinks manufacturers, pulled from GB News because they felt it was not in accordance with their inclusive values. Apparently, Kopparberg's drink is for everyone except for those people who watch GB News, a television station that isn't woke. Perhaps they forgot the role that alcohol plays in domestic violence, depression and suicide when considering said values, or perhaps they simply don't care about these things. Open University, Nivea, OVO Energy, Indeed.com, The Cooperative, Boots, Borscht Home UK, LV, and MoneySupermarket.com all pulled their advertising from GB News because of a sustained campaign of social media cancellation. Octopus Energy CEO Greg Jackson sounded as if he were trapped in a hostage situation on Twitter, claiming he gave 15,000 times the amount of money on progressive stuff and said they would only advertise on GB News if it proves to be genuinely balanced. This is a remarkable standard to which no other news organisation is held, or at least almost no other organisation. The Independent ran an active campaign against the results of the Brexit referendum, and yet their advertisers didn't pull. Why not? The BBC is the only organisation with a genuine obligation to be unbiased, and BBC Question Time has been particularly insufferable for this. Panel after panel after panel is populated by people with an obvious left-wing or pro-Remain bias, with often a single lone conservative voice to represent an opposing idea. A 2016 study by the Institute of Economic Affairs on BBC Radio 4's influential Today programme between March 2004 and June 2015 used as a sample of 4,275 guest speakers on EU themes and found that just 132 of them were identifiably in favour of Britain's withdrawal from the EU. This puts the Eurosceptic position as having a representation of only 3.2%. There's a long history of the BBC admitting its left-wing bias as well. In 2001, BBC governors admitted that Newsnight was guilty of a pro-Labour political bias over Peter Mandelson's resignation over the Hinduja affair. In 2006, leaked internal memos revealed that senior figures at the BBC admitted it was guilty of promoting left-wing views and an anti-Christian sentiment. In 2015, Roger Mosey, a former editorial director of the BBC, admitted their left-wing bias in the form of a liberal groupthink. And in my opinion, this goes all the way back to George Orwell's view on the wartime Anglophobia of the British intelligentsia who populated the BBC and other publications in his day. GB News are being held to the standards of the BBC, who fail to uphold it themselves. In fact, the cutting edge of left-wing thought has abolished the idea of impartiality or objectivity altogether. Since human perception is subjective, our interpretation of the world is equally subjective, and our expression is a product of this. Furthermore, we're all subject to unconscious bias, from which there is no escape, so why should the left's charge against themselves be a way of discrediting the right? So, returning to the charge of GB News not being unbiased, obviously, they've been completely upfront with their bias and are not, in fact, misleading their viewers. Unlike every other TV station, Sky News, many of the brands openly publicised, in fact, that it is not any one thing that GB News has done that is the problem. It is their resistance to woke politics that is the cause. Using the dog whistles of diversity, inclusivity, and hate, GB News has been stigmatised by left-wing activists and the corporations by simply being a television station that is not going to follow the new civic religion. The left-wing activists running the British television broadcasting establishment, and apparently some major international corporations, know they have the game sewn up, because none of the opposing players are allowed on the pitch. They know they are operating an ideological monopoly. You believe what they have to say, or they cancel you. And then cometh GB News, an openly patriotic news channel that will not be a constant demoralising force, and they can't stand it. They know GB News represents the Brexit voting majority of the country, the majority that goes unheard in the mainstream, and the woke Twitterati do not want their voices to contribute to the public dialogue. This is the very reason that Andrew Neil founded GB News, to provide a voice to those people who rightly felt that they are not represented on TV. And the biased left-wing journalists and the activist class that buzzes around their behinds for a lick of the filth caked there can't even wait for a scandal to be the veil of justification to get them deplatformed. Oh no, GB News must not be allowed to exist in principle.